My pulse thundered in my ears as Richard Green's words struck like physical blows. "Well," he waved dismissively at me, "Catherine, we've arranged for the help to stay in the kitchen during the main reception. Wouldn't want to overwhelm the justices with too many unfamiliar faces." The Princeton Law School kitchen's polished surfaces reflected the humiliation burning across my face, not because I was embarrassed, but because these people had spent months belittling my son, Victor, while never realizing who they were actually speaking to. The catering staff exchanged knowing glances, silent witnesses to my deliberate silence, as Richard's daughter Natalie assessed my simple navy suit with barely concealed contempt. I tasted metal as I maintained my composed expression, the same one I'd worn while sentencing Richard's firm's former client in a landmark corruption case just last month. They hadn't recognized me then either. "My name is Patricia, I'm 52 and a federal judge. This is the story of how I taught a privileged family that true worth isn't measured by social status. For months, I'd watched how the Greens treated Victor. My brilliant son had earned his place at Princeton Law through relentless work and natural talent, dating Natalie Green despite her family's thinly veiled disdain for his modest background. Richard, a managing partner at one of New York's most prestigious law firms, constantly questioned Victor's pedigree, never bothering to ask about his family beyond learning I was a single mother from the Bronx. "Katie, darling." Richard's voice pulled me back to the present as he straightened his Italian leather tie. "Justice Williams has arrived." His eyes flickered to me with that particular brand of dismissal reserved for those he deemed irrelevant. "You must be Victor's mother. The one from where was it again?" "The Bronx Supreme Court," I supplied helpfully, watching him misinterpret my answer exactly as expected. "Yes, well," he smiled tightly, the same nervous expression he'd worn during his firm's arguments before my bench last month. "Catherine, we've arranged for the help to stay in the kitchen during the main reception." The insult hung in the air, deliberate and cutting. 6 months of similar comments flashed through my mind. Richard telling colleagues Victor came from humble stock. Natalie suggesting my son distance himself from his embarrassing background to better fit into their world. Margaret Green wondering aloud if I could even afford a proper dress for tonight's reception. "How thoughtful," Victor's voice carried across the kitchen. My son, handsome in his graduation robes, looked every bit the future legal star he was destined to become. Unlike the Greens, he'd earned his place through merit rather than money. "Victor, darling," Natalie rushed to him, diamond earrings catching the light. "I was just helping your mother find her place." My son's face darkened. "In the kitchen, Nat." "We talked about this." "It's fine," I said softly, the same tone I used before delivering a particularly devastating verdict. "I'm quite comfortable here." Richard Green straightened his tie. "Yes, well, given your background, we thought you'd prefer something less formal. After all," his smile turned condescending, "not everyone is equipped to handle conversations with Supreme Court justices." Victor stepped forward, but I caught his eye. The slight shake of my head was enough. He recognized my courtroom face. I hadn't spent 20 years on the bench without learning when to spring a trap. "Perhaps," I said, "we should focus on the reception. I believe I hear Justice Williams discussing the Martinez decision from last month's federal circuit." Right on cue through the kitchen doors came the distinguished voice of Justice Williams. "Where is Patricia?" I was hoping to congratulate her on that brilliant opinion. Completely revolutionizes our approach to corporate accountability. Richard Green's face froze mid-smile. "Judge Martinez?" A young clerk poked his head into the kitchen. "Justice Williams is asking for you. He wants your input on the corporate fraud guidelines." The look on Natalie's face was priceless, horror spreading like spilled wine across her features as realization dawned. "Judge, Federal Judge Patricia Martinez," I corrected gently, smoothing my suit, "though I do appreciate your concern about my ability to handle conversations with the Supreme Court. I only argue before them, every other month or so." Richard Green had turned an interesting shade of gray. "But you, the Bronx Supreme Court." "Was where I started 20 years ago," I finished, "before becoming the youngest federal judge in the Second Circuit. Your firm appears before me quite regularly, Mr. Green, though you seem to send your junior partners more often than not. Natalie's perfect composure cracked. But you let us think you were the help. I raised an eyebrow. Yes, I did. Consider it a lesson in judgment and the dangers of assumption. Now shall we join the reception? I believe Justice Williams is waiting. As I walked past the shell-shocked Greens, Olivia the server caught my eye and gave me a subtle thumbs up. I winked back, making a mental note to recommend her daughter for our court's internship program. Victor fell into step beside me. You knew this would happen. Sometimes, I said, straightening his graduation robes, people need to learn their lessons in memorable ways. Besides, watching Richard Green realize he's been condescending to the judge who's about to hear his firm's biggest case next week, I allowed myself a small smile. Priceless. And Natalie? Victor studied my face carefully. That depends on whether she learns from this, I replied, though I suspect she'll need more than one lesson about judging books by their covers. As we entered the main reception, Justice Williams boomed. Patricia! Brilliant opinion on the Martinez case. Simply brilliant. Tell me, how did you anticipate the corporate structure loophole? I smiled, feeling the Green family's stares burning into my back. Actually, Bill, that insight came from my early days working as a night janitor at the courthouse while putting myself through law school. Sometimes the best understanding of the law comes from seeing its effects on every level of society. The gathered legal luminaries nodded appreciatively, while behind me I heard Natalie whisper to her father, Daddy, I think I made a terrible mistake. Indeed, you did, I thought, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. But perhaps there was hope for her yet. After all, I didn't become a federal judge by believing people couldn't change. The next hour unfolded like a masterclass in social discomfort. Richard Green, who'd spent the past 6 months telling everyone his daughter was marrying into new legal royalty, now watched helplessly as his colleagues connected the dots between his future in-law and the federal judge he'd been actively avoiding in court. Judge Martinez, a senior partner from his firm, approached, champagne glass trembling slightly. We had no idea you were Victor's mother. Richard has been unusually modest about the connection. Has he? I smiled, enjoying Richard's visible perspiration. How unlike him, especially given his passionate arguments against my ruling in the Winston case last spring, though I primarily heard those through his junior associates, of course. The senior partner's face tightened. Everyone in the legal community knew Richard had dumped that case on his subordinates after my preliminary ruling went against his client. Richard, you never mentioned you had such personal insight into Judge Martinez's perspectives. Natalie, still wearing her designer dress but with considerably less composure, hovered at the edges of conversations, watching her carefully cultivated social network realign itself around the new reality. The daughters of other legal dynasties who previously followed her lead in snubbing Victor's humble background now competed for his attention. Victor, she caught his arm as he passed. I need to explain. Explain what, Nat? My son's voice was quiet but carried the same steel I often use from the bench. Explain how you told your friends my mother couldn't afford a proper dress for the reception, or how you suggested I distance myself from my embarrassing background to better fit into your world. I pretended not to listen while chatting with Justice Williams, but I caught Natalie's flinch. I didn't know... That's worse, Victor cut in. You didn't know she was a federal judge, so you thought it was okay to treat her like she was beneath you. What does that say about how you view people who actually work in service jobs? Olivia, the kind server from earlier, passed by with a tray. Natalie's face flushed as she recognized her from the countless times she'd snapped at her during previous events. Natalie's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide her growing distress. Victor, please, we can fix this. Fix what? A new voice joined the conversation. Margaret Green, Natalie's mother, arrived with the precise timing of someone who'd been waiting for the right moment to pounce. Natalie, darling, we need to discuss damage control. Do you realize half the judges in this room have heard about your little kitchen incident? I decided to take pity on them, or perhaps set up an even more valuable lesson. Mrs. Green, I turned from my conversation. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. The donor's lounge should be empty. The Greens followed me like condemned prisoners to their sentence. Once inside the luxurious lounge, Margaret immediately went on the offensive. Judge Martinez, surely we can come to an understanding. Richard's firm has several major cases pending in your court. Are you attempting to negotiate with a federal judge, Mrs. Green? I kept my voice mild, but both women paled. Because that would be highly inappropriate, wouldn't it? I didn't mean... No, I said softly. You never mean it, do you? You never mean to be cruel to service staff, or to judge people based on their perceived social status, or to teach your daughter that human worth is measured by bank accounts and family connections. Natalie sank into a leather chair. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't help, but I am truly sorry. Actually, I took a seat across from her, it does help, but only if it's the beginning of real change, not just damage control. Margaret remained standing, her perfectly manicured hands clasped tightly. What do you want from us? Want? I raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Green, I have everything I could want. A fulfilling career, a wonderful son, and the satisfaction of knowing I earned every step of my success. The question is, what do you want for your daughter? Natalie looked up, mascara slightly smudged. What do you mean? I mean, do you want her to continue believing that worth is measured by designer labels and social connections? Or do you want her to understand what real strength and character look like? I don't understand, Margaret began, but Natalie interrupted. You want me to work for it? She said slowly. Like you did, like Victor does. I smiled, seeing perhaps the first genuine insight from her all evening. My first job was cleaning courtrooms at night. Know what I learned there? That the person emptying your trash bin at 2 a.m. might be studying for the bar exam. That the server you snapped at might have a daughter in law school. That character isn't inherited with trust funds. It's built through understanding and respecting every person's dignity. But what can I do? Natalie asked, and for the first time, I heard real desperation to learn in her voice. Well, I said, the Legal Aid Society is always looking for volunteers, and I believe the Courthouse Daycare Center needs reading tutors for the children of defendants who can't afford childcare during their trials. Margaret gasped. Natalie can't possibly... I'll do it, Natalie cut in. Both programs, and I'd like to apologize to Olivia and all the other staff I've been horrible to. Natalie, her mother protested. No, Mother. Natalie stood, straightening her spine. Judge Martinez is right. I've been awful. We all have. And if I want to deserve someone like Victor, I need to become someone worthy of respect, not just someone who demands it. I studied her face, seeing perhaps the first crack in the perfectly crafted social facade. You know, this won't be easy. Your friends won't understand. Your parents' social circle will talk. Let them, Natalie said firmly. I'd rather be known for doing something meaningful than for being mean to people who serve me drinks. Margaret sank into a chair, looking shell-shocked. Your father will never understand. Then perhaps, I suggested, it's time for Mr. Green to spend some time in his firm's pro bono department. I hear they're terribly understaffed. As we returned to the reception, I watched Natalie walk straight to Olivia and ask for a moment of her time. The apology wasn't perfect. Years of ingrained superiority don't disappear in one evening. But it was a start. Victor appeared at my elbow. You're giving her a chance. I'm giving her an opportunity, I corrected. Whether it becomes a chance depends on what she does with it. And her father's cases in your court? I smiled. Will be heard with the same impartiality I show all cases, though perhaps Mr. Green might find himself with a surprising number of pro bono assignments in the coming months. As the reception wound down, I watched Natalie help the staff clear glasses, her designer dress slightly wrinkled, but her smile more genuine than I'd ever seen it. Sometimes, I thought, the best judgments aren't made from the bench. 3 months after the reception, I sat in my chambers reviewing case files when my clerk announced an unexpected visitor, Natalie Green. Victor had mentioned that she had been following through on her commitments to the volunteer programs, but I hadn't seen her personally since that night. She looked different. Gone were the designer labels and perfectly coiffed hair. Instead, she wore a simple blazer, and her hands showed slight calluses from actual work. "Judge Martinez," she started, then corrected herself. "Patricia, I wanted to show you something." She placed a folder on my desk. Inside were thank you letters from the children at the courthouse daycare center, where she'd been spending her mornings reading to them. Photos showed her sitting cross-legged on the floor, helping kids with homework while their parents attended court proceedings. "Olivia's daughter got accepted to law school," Natalie said quietly. "I've been helping her prepare for the LSAT between my legal aid shifts. She's brilliant. She just needed someone to believe in her." I nodded, noting the absence of her usual makeup and the new confidence that had replaced her social armor. "And your father?" Natalie's laugh held a touch of irony. "He's discovering that pro bono cases can be surprisingly fulfilling. Last week, he helped a homeless veteran reclaim his pension benefits. I've never seen him so excited about a legal victory, and it wasn't even for a paying client." "And your mother?" "She's adjusting," Natalie smiled. She joined the courthouse daycare center's fundraising committee, though she did insist on teaching the children proper table etiquette alongside their reading lessons. I set down the folder. "And you? Are you finding what you're looking for?" Natalie's expression turned serious. I found something I didn't know I was missing. Purpose. Real connections. The children don't care about my last name or my handbag collection. They care that I show up, that I listen, that I help. "And Victor?" Her face softened. "He was right to be disappointed in me that night, but he's proud of me now. Not because I'm trying to impress his mother, the federal judge, but because I'm finally becoming someone he can respect." I studied her carefully. The entitled socialite who had tried to hide me in the kitchen was gone, replaced by someone who understood the value of earned respect. "My old friends don't understand," she continued. "They think I'm having some sort of breakdown spending time with those people. But for the first time, I'm not worried about what they think. Because you've learned what really matters. Because I've learned who really matters," she corrected. "The mothers working 3 jobs to support their kids through school. The courthouse staff who know every judge's coffee preference but never get thanked. The public defenders fighting impossible odds with impossible caseloads." I smiled, remembering my own journey from nighttime janitor to federal judge. "And what's next for the new Natalie Green?" She straightened in her chair. "I've applied to work as a public defender after graduation. Father nearly had a heart attack. He already had my corner office at the firm picked out, but I want to earn my own way, make my own mark." "It won't be easy," I warned. "The pay is low, the hours are long, and the work is heartbreaking." "I know," she said simply. "But thanks to that night in the kitchen, I finally understand that the hardest paths often lead to the most meaningful destinations." As Natalie left my chambers, I thought about power and privilege, about kitchens and courtrooms, about lessons taught in unexpected moments. Victor appeared in my doorway. "Mom, ready for lunch?" "Let me guess, Natalie told you she was coming." He grinned. "She wanted you to know the lesson stuck. That she's changed." "No," I corrected, gathering my robes. "She's changing. And that's even better, because it means she's doing it for herself, not for us." As we walked to lunch, passing Olivia's daughter studying law books in the courthouse library, I remembered another young woman who'd once cleaned these halls while dreaming of something more. Sometimes the best verdicts are the ones that transform lives rather than just judge them. And sometimes the biggest changes start in the smallest places, like a kitchen at a law school reception, where an entitled young woman learned that true worth isn't about where you stand, but how you treat those around you. As for Victor and Natalie's relationship, they decided to take some time apart after the reception to allow Natalie to focus on her personal growth. 6 months later, they began dating again, this time on a more equal foundation of mutual respect. Victor had seen genuine change in Natalie, not just temporary remorse, and they are now building a relationship based on shared values rather than social expectations. Before you go, if you enjoy stories about personal growth and transformation, you might want to try audiobooks. There's an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That gives you access to over 500,000 titles at no cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description.